What's up, everyone? Let's hop into this week's Workout Wednesday challenge for creating a highlight action. A highlight action basically just means color a single item that I have clicked on and color everything else gray or uncolor it. So, first, we're going to be creating some analysis that's going to be on sales. So, I'm going to do a quantity times price calculation to get my sales. And that's basically it. We can start creating some visualizations. First, I'm going to create my bar chart, which is going to be the order count by product type. So we'll do a product type and then we'll do the order number and we'll change this to be count distinct. We'll do some of the formatting later, but let's get everything built first. I'm going to duplicate this for our line charts because we're going to be doing something similar. I'm going to pull in my cost and my sales in here. You'll notice that this is not two separate elements. It is the same element, and we can tell because we're sharing a label down here. So let's remove the order count and let's split this out. This is a somewhat newer release within Sigma that instead of trellising by the category, we can now trellis by the series, which is what we want to do here since the series in our case is going to be our cost and sales. Let's quickly convert this to a line chart. And now we need to change our axes to a time frame. It was months, so let's change that to be the months. And I know that our requirements are going to say we're going to filter to the last 6 months of data. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to come up to my plugs electronic table, and I'm just going to filter the date range to be the last 6 months. And I know we don't want the current month because the line chart is showing a full time period. All right, so we've got our line chart by a time period, and now we need to split out each line by the product type. So I'm going to pull that field back into our categories, and now we've got one line per item. I'm just going to quickly change the order to make it be the same as sales and cost. And again, we'll come back to the formatting in a second. The third item we're going to create is a pivot table. This one is pretty simple where we're just going to do the product type and then the same measures or the same values that we were looking at for our visuals. So we'll do order count in sales and cost. Again, do more formatting later. All right, so we've got our elements created. And now we want to create the way in which we're going to be identifying which item or which product type the end user has selected. So I know that we need to create one action per element in here because we can see that in this GIF, any item that we click on or the end user clicks on is going to change the coloring for it. So I know I'm going to create in one action per element. And I also know that I'm going to be distinguishing a single value. So I'm not coloring everything. I'm just coloring a single thing. So let's create that functionality. I'm going to come back up to my plugs electronic table. And what I'm going to do is create a control element. So I'm going to choose my product type, create a filter, and then convert to page control and then remove the target from here. That's just my favorite way of creating these pre-populated lists since I know I'm only going to be selecting these values. I'm going to unselect allow multiple selections because I only want to color one item at a time. And everything else I can leave because no one's going to see this. This is going to be on the back end. But I am going to change this to be control type CE. CE means control element. In my mind, anything that makes sense to you, feel free to name it something just to help distinguish it when we're going to be referencing it later between the control element and the product type columns in here. So next, we're going to be creating the coloring. So let's come down to this line chart and look at how Sigma distinguishes or identifies colors. So you can see that when we pulled the product type in here, Sigma automatically changed this to be by category and then assigned some colors across the board. So if we were to change a palette, let's do this one, we can see that Sigma is assigning these colors in the order of our list. So in our case, this is alphabetical. And so it's assigning this to be the first item in our list, this blue to be the second item in our list. So what we're going to be doing is basically hacking the order in which these items are sorted. And another way that we can see this is when we click on something in the line chart, the order of our labels changes. So there you can see computers popping up to the front. So let's go through and change the order of these columns so that whatever item we select or whatever item we click on is going to be on the top. So how do we do that? Well, we need to first create a field in which to identify the sort order. So I'm going to come back to my plugs electronic table. I'm going to add a new column that basically says if the product type control element equals my product type column or the, for the row that I'm in, then 1, else 0. And this is going to be my sort order. So let's come back down to our line chart and we'll add this back in so we can see how this is going to work. So I'm going to come to the field in which I want to control the order of my colors, which in this case is the product type on my colors. So I'm going to select here. I'm going to choose a custom sort, and I'm going to choose that sort order one. We're going to do a descending and we're going to do the sum. So it's just going to be an aggregation of all of the times in which the product type is the one that is selected. So that's always going to be higher. So it's always going to be first because it's 1 and everything else is 0. Click save. All right. Nothing has changed, and that's because we don't have any items within our product type. We'll create that action in a second, but let's determine the colors that are going to be assigned first. So I'm going to come back to this blue, so that one is first. We'll go to custom and we'll assign these hex codes to be in the order in which we want to assign them. So I'm going to click edit for hex codes. We'll just keep this blue. You can choose any color that you want for this, but I'm going to delete the rest of these and I'm going to add in the color, the gray color that I had assigned. Again, you can choose any neutral color. This is just the one that I like to do. So if I were to leave this, Sigma would alternate between these two colors. So arts and entertainment would be blue, computers would be gray, and then entertainment would be blue, and then mobiles would be gray, and music would be blue, and photography would be gray. And that's not what we want. We want gray to be assigned for everything that's not the selected control element. I don't feel like counting in this moment, so I'm just going to put a bunch of grays in there. So here we can see that Sigma is assigning that blue or that first color that we've got here to our first item, and then the rest are going to be gray. So let's go through and create that action to demonstrate how this is going to work for that sort order, and then we'll go through it and do the rest of the items. So again, I know that I'm going to be creating an action for each one, but I'm going to come to the actions here. We're going to add a new action. And since we only have one control element in this workbook and we're populating an action from our visualization, Sigma's doing a pretty good job of saying, hey, you probably want to set that control value, the only one that you have in here, and you probably want to populate from that product type column, which is yes, that is what we want to do. So let's test it out by changing this. So we clicked on music and now that one is blue. And you'll see again, the sort order is changing here. And again, that one, the music is going to be put into that control element. So if I click out, it's going to default or reset with no value, and it'll just go back to the alphabetical order. So let's come to our bar chart and do a similar thing. Since I'm already here in the action menu, let's go ahead and do that. Sigma's making it easy since we've got one item in here. But now I need to add the colors to this one since we want the bar charts to be, the bars to be colored in a similar way. Since I already have a product type field on here, I need to duplicate this one and then pull it into my colors by category. And again, I'm going to assign those hex codes. So I'm going to make my life easier and just go back to that line chart and copy and paste these. All right, so you might be wondering, why aren't we using these auto assigns? And that's because we don't have a way to dynamically assign these color values. So I can assign this once and I can say I want my arts and entertainment to be green or orange or blue or whatever, but there isn't a way to say in this scenario I want it to be orange and in that scenario I want it to be green. So that's why we're hacking the order in which Sigma is assigning these in order to get the desired result. So again, we'll test it out by clicking mobile, and we'll see down here that it is also changing. All right, I forgot to change the sort order, and that's what it was. So let's go to the custom sort order again. And again, we'll do descending sum. Sorry about that. All right, now let's test it. There we go. Now it's mobile, and again, now it's music, and we can see it being replicated here. Lastly, for our pivot table, we need to handle when the control element is null or blank. When we have these colors assigned, we're always going to have a value that's going to be first in our list. We're always going to have arts and entertainment or something like that. So one thing to keep in mind is that if you have a real life example, we're going to be filtering where, let's say we filter by region and maybe a specific region doesn't have arts and entertainment. What you would want to do is probably create a default action for the product type, or publish the product type, or publish your workbook in a way that makes the product type, whatever product type is first or whatever product type you want, to default in there versus the way that I'm going to do it, which is a little bit of hard coding value. But in my pivot table, I'm going to select action, or whoops, I'm going to select element format first, and we'll do the conditional formatting. So for this one, I'm going to select all columns because I want it to highlight the entire row. And then I'm going to choose a custom formula. And for this, I'm basically going to say, hey, Sigma, if the product type control element is null, then default to the first value in my list, which is the product type of arts and entertainment. Otherwise, use the item or use the product type that is in the control element. So again, if the product type control element is null, use art and entertainment. Otherwise, use the product type control element. And if that whatever is in that condition meets the row, then color that row. So next, we'll color this to be that same blue. Looks like the hex code isn't working. Let me just grab it from the bar chart quick. Here we go. That's the same blue. And now we need to apply the action. So again, anytime someone is clicking on one of these product types, it's going to highlight the entire row. So what I'm going to do is add an action. And again, we're going to be assigning that control type value. So let's just test it out. Yep, looks like it's working. So lastly, what I would do is all of the formatting options in order to meet this formatting. A lot of these things can be found in the element format menu. All right, that's today's video. I hope you enjoyed learning how to create a highlight action. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.